All right, man. How you doing?
Good. How's it going?
I'm good.
Happy to be here.
Yeah. So our new Drinks with Darren format.
There we go. Cheers.
Drinks with Darren and Adam.
That's right.
Cheers, buddy.
Happy to be here instead of you hogging all the limelight. So
I know. Well, let's get into it. So what I figured we would do this time around is we'll have a little bit of a conversation. And today's video, number one, we're doing the new format because I figured, kind of as you said, it would be a little more interesting than people sitting there and watching me talk.
right. A little bit more of a little bit more of what else comes with the Germyn Group.
That's right,
Darren. But then there's also the Adam as well.
I would agree. Yeah,
Happy to be here.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you're here. So, and what I want to do, in this video today, we're going to do what we always do in Drinks with Darren. So we'll talk about the stats. We're actually going to kind of wrap up the year of 2023, talk about what happened last year, going into 2023. Steve Crash from the Crash Road Property Group and I had done some predictions. So we're going to talk about how accurate those were and that sort of thing. I want to talk about some of the changes that have happened in 2023.
A lot of changes.
It was a wild year. The government threw absolutely everything that they could at the real estate market.
They did.
Which, in many ways was impressive. They're taking this whole housing crisis thing very seriously. It's no joke. People need to find places to live. We got a lot of people coming here. They need a place to live. They threw a lot of stuff at the wall. We're going to talk about some of them.
I agree.
Maybe some were good, some were bad. For anybody that follows the YouTube channel, they've probably seen some of my opinions on some of it, and a lot of it, it's been coming out so fast and furious. I haven't even had a chance to talk about a lot of it. So we'll get into a little bit about that, and we'll talk a little bit about predictions for next year. I'm curious what you think. You obviously work with more of the buyers now.
Primarily, I work with the buyers, so it's easy. Most of them are excited. They're a little bit newer, but at the same time, I have the privilege of also working with people who have done it before, and it's just really cool just to see them move from where they are into their new home, or if it's their first time home buyer. It's awesome to be along for the ride. So
yeah, and I mean, what's kind of neat is you see things from their perspective a little bit. I get more of the seller side perspective sort of thing. So it'll be interesting to see kind of what you figure, based on your lens of working with these people that you think, is kind of we coming up here. So what I figured we'd do to begin with, we'll talk a little bit about some of the predictions that I made last year. Okay. And I'm not an economist, but the nice thing is about our team, this is what's always really fun about doing these, is we work with so many people, right? We get an opportunity to do much more than the average realtor does in terms of volume, right? So we get to work with a lot more people. And the nice thing about that is we get to feel kind of what's going on with the market, right? Like these people show us, they tell us, we're seeing what happens when we show people homes, or people are looking at the homes that we have for sale and all that sort of stuff. So totally. It's always nice to kind of get our lens on that, because I feel like sometimes we're actually ahead of where an economist might be, because they're looking at numbers that happened yesterday and trying to put them all together and get a sense. And usually it's for a bigger subset of an area as well.
Exactly.
So these are the predictions. We projected, I predicted anyway, 2023, that there would be less sales than there was the previous year in 2022.
Bingo.
Hit that like a home run out of the park.
That's it.
So we, as you know, we just got our most recent stats out this morning. I don't have the whole package here, but the headline was slowest market in the last 10 years.
Yeah, in the last decade.
Yeah, which was pretty incredible. And I mean, we felt that as well. You've been with the Germyn Group since 2020.
Yeah,
just before 2020.
Just before 2020, 2019.
Just prior to COVID.
Yeah.
So you've seen crazy markets, and obviously this most recent one. I've been doing it since 2007, so I've been through a couple of these now.
Yeah, this is my first one, and I could say it was definitely a shock from the 2021 market. That was crazy. You had 2 days to either get in during an open house, and people were just throwing in offers, no subject. Yeah, and then now it's interesting to see the other flip coin. So it's funny like that. But
I remember saying to so many of our listings, like, they were positioned well in the market, right? So the price was good, and there wasn't competition, maybe kind of in around there. And even though it was so slow, I mean, geez, like getting showings at points throughout last year was like pulling teeth trying to get people into properties. We were coming out with all these crazy ideas trying to shake the tree and get more people into the properties, which ultimately worked with all of our properties. I believe we got them all sold. But what I found that was interesting about them is I kept on saying every week we do an update to them, and I'd say, we're well positioned. We're well positioned. You know, we might not have a showing or many showings this week, that sort of thing, but we're well positioned. It ended up working out. You know, like you're positioned in the market properly. People will come. They just might not come what we're used to. They might not come tomorrow.
On heavy, yeah.
Yeah. So that all worked out. So I mean, obviously that was a very accurate prediction. There was less sales than there was the previous year.
Definitely.
We'll talk about next year momentarily. Now, the second one was what asset class is going to do the best, or you know, what are the asset classes going to do? Where are they going to fall? So I had predicted between 2 to 3%, given either way. So I had said flat. You know, the market might go up, market might go down, that sort of thing a little bit, but nothing to get overly excited about.
That's right.
Funny enough. Now, I don't know how well you got into the stats this morning, so this is a little bit of let's see how well you can remember.
Fair enough.
Thing. Do you think the market? We know the market went up. Okay. Now, you know, there's a caveat to that. The market started off at the depth of the market. So it basically bottomed out as of January of last year.
Yes.
It climbed up until about the spring, you know, maybe early summer. And then it started to fall again. It started to come down again. How much do you think the average asset class went up? I predicted flat, you know, anywhere between 2 to 3% either direction.
I want to say 5%.
Pretty close. We're looking anywhere from high 5s to just under 8.
Wow.
So, you know, we'll get into those a little bit later. I wouldn't have thought it was going to go up quite that much, but I mean, amazing. I mean,
8% on $1 million, let alone more than that. Geez, you're talking big money.
I mean, that's
sure.
There's nothing to get upset about that. I mean, you know, even it's funny because even anybody that was holding off, thinking that the market and the sky was falling, obviously there was good opportunities last year to buy, and you know that continues today. There's always good opportunities, but if you had bought a home in January of last year and you're looking a year later, at the bare minimum on average for the benchmark price, you're up almost 6%.
Exactly.
Which yeah,
that's what I'll cry about for sure. So
yeah, I mean, you know, the real estate always tends to work out. You need a place to live, right?
That's right.
So that was an interesting one. And the last one was where interest rates would be.
Oh no.
So I'm gonna pick my more generous guess on this one. So
fair.
I was just looking at what interest rates were today. You know, for a discounted 5-year fix sort of thing, and they've actually been below 5%. But they're not today, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
But they were below 5% relatively recently. So I predicted that they would probably end up anywhere between 4.5 to 4.75. So right now, 5-year fix is about 5.09.
Right.
So not too far away. I mean, all in all, I would say those predictions were fair. I think we did fairly well. I certainly didn't think that the prices would end up as high as they did. But
I agree.
Anyways, I thought that was interesting. But now that we got that out of the way, I'm going to go over all of the things that happened in the last year. So from your perspective, if you had to sum it up in a sentence about all of the changes that happened last year, you know, I'm an alien from another planet. What would you say?
Man, it was a roller coaster is really the only word or the only sentence. So we start off the end of December, kind of going into that January, February, super hot market. And we saw a lot of people, you know, they needed that place to live. And also there is also the foreign entity ban as well. So there's the 2, you know, years from 2023 to 2025 where foreign entities cannot purchase real estate within Canada.
Right.
So this was kind of that last, we want to say, ditch effort at the good interest rates to kind of get into that home. And then eventually what happened is the interest rates hiked. The bank said, oh, hold on, we're not going to give out as much money as we did during COVID. So now you kind of go into that big downwards hill where now it's, well, now people want to afford what they can. And then it's, you know, asset classes that they want to get into are sometimes a little bit out of reach. And then everyone, you know, oh, the interest rates are so high. Let's just see what awaits next year. And then therein lies the downward spiral. So
yeah. Well, I'm going to ask you another question. How well did you do at school on tests?
Not very well.
Because I asked you to say it in a sentence.
Yeah. Well, they said that usually people do good on their homework because it's consistent. And then when they say, do your test, it's that one snapshot and it's like, oh no, now I lost everything because it's that one moment.
Yeah. No, it's okay.
Fair enough.
All right. Well, yeah, if I had to sum it up in a sentence, I would say it was throwing absolutely everything at the wall, but using a shotgun or a bazooka to do it. So I'm going to go over all these. We're not gonna dive into the all of these necessarily. Some of them are federal things, and some of them are provincial things. Many of them are provincial things. But it's just incredible the amount of things that kind of came up. So the first one was the Prohibition on the Purchase of Residential Property by Non-Canadians Act. You just kind of touched on that one.
Mm-hmm.
So did that have a huge effect? To kind of cut to the chase on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very political tool that, did it have some impact in freeing up homes? Yeah, it could have, likely did. Mm-hmm. It wasn't substantial, likely not. But that's of course in place till 2025, as you mentioned.
I'll add on to that too. I think that with that ban, that actually boosted our rental market to unprecedented amounts too. Because if they couldn't buy and people were coming in, what are they going to do? They're not going to sleep on the streets. So they have to live somewhere. So therefore, rentals, if you needed to keep housing people who can purchase, that's for your rental market. That's crazy too.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's a good point. So that was that came in at the beginning of 2023. I'm getting my years mixed up here. You had the Canada anti-flipping tax introduced on January 1st of last year as well. So flip property in Canada owned for less than 365 consecutive days prior to disposition are the ones that were affected. Profit from property flipping is fully taxable as business income and does not qualify for the 50% capital gains inclusion rate or principal residence exemption. There was a few exemptions to that, but that was a big one. That was obviously done to kind of eliminate some of the speculation.
That's right.
In the market. How much it really affected, resale market and stuff like that. I couldn't really say, but we had one provincially. This was an interesting one that we still have to deal with today and then likely for the foreseeable future. The home buyer's rescission period. So you were working with a lot of buyers. So you would experience that with the buyer side.
Totally.
And their feelings on that. I would get it on the seller side.
Totally.
Before I get into my opinion on it, what was the kind of the buyer's take on this, and maybe explain the rescission period?
Yeah, totally. So with the rescission period brought into BC, it pretty much said that for whatever reason, you walk into your home, you say, I don't like this paint color. The roof isn't 9-10 feet tall.
Literally any reason.
Yeah. You can walk away.
Right.
But there is a 0.25% penalty that does come with that if you fall within that 3-day range. The reason why this was brought in...
3 business days.
3 business days, pardon me. The reason why this was brought in was because there was a lot of buyer's remorse going on in this super crazy hot market. We did a video on that as well. We noticed that people were kind of upset. They were throwing hundreds of thousands of dollars over asking. There was no subjects or conditions to do your homework on these properties. And then they get in this home, God forbid something happened with the foundation wasn't inspected, or maybe there was some things on the title of the property, or maybe there's something going on with the home, and now they're stuck with it. So this was brought in preemptively as a, kind of one of those decisions of, hey, maybe we have a little bit of a gap that we can go, hey, I just don't feel right about this property. I'm just going to walk away, because walking away at 0.25% is a lot better than locking yourself in at, 1 million, 1.5 million, 2 million.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
So that's kind of what I noticed too.
Do you think it made a difference in, it came in at a time where the market was quite quiet?
Yes.
So a really big change.
1 year too late.
I would say that's probably pretty accurate. Do you think it really changed the sentiment for buyers when they were looking at properties, in your opinion?
No, it didn't. To be completely honest, I don't know one buyer that has used it working with us. Actually, since it's been imposed, we haven't had one buyer enact the right to rescission.
Right.
But that also stands testament to our homework and the ability to add our conditions onto our offers now.
Yeah.
Which kind of makes it seem moot.
Yeah. I've heard anecdotally that it's been used, but it's probably not overly prevalent.
Yeah.
From my perspective with sellers, I found it very challenging, and I think the sellers did as well, because when you get buyers competing on a property, as you know, there's certain things you can do to improve an offer over another one, right? And there were still competitive offers happening last year.
Sure. Yeah.
Specifically, I remember a few that we dealt with in the spring, and it really kind of tied the hands of the seller, because they might, if a buyer decides to put in a condition-free offer, and they were excited about it, and this is what they're prepared to do. Maybe they did have the cash in the bank. Maybe they were prepared to, deal with anything that might come up through an inspection and that sort of thing. But then the seller just had to kind of sit on their hands for 3 days. It wasn't just 3 days; it was 3 business days. So,
right.
One of my challenges that I always had with that home buyer rescission is, depending on the day that the offer is accepted. If you accept an offer on a Friday, as an example, Saturday, Sunday didn't count. If you had a long weekend in there, it was pushed even further back.
It's almost Thursday.
Yeah, I mean, geez, imagine like the Easter long weekend as an example. It was challenging for sellers. Again, we didn't have anybody use this rescission on any of our listings, any of the buyers that kind of came forward and whatnot. But it's certainly going to create a lot of extra paperwork and whatnot.
Totally.
So
That's right.
It'll be interesting to see, how that plays out moving forward. But I'm a little softer to it now than I once was. I didn't love it when it first came in. I'd say I'm still on the more not loving it side, but I'm a little softer towards it, because I do like the idea of leveling the playing field a little bit for buyers. But I think in the leveling of the playing field, they took some advantages or some tools away from the sellers. And I mean, let's face it, we're the only place in North America that does this.
Exactly.
As far as I'm aware anyway. So
the guinea pigs for this too.
Yeah, which we often are in British Columbia for a lot of stuff. But it was interesting, and we're still continuing to deal with it. So
I'll jump in here too.
Sure.
It'll be very interesting to see, because it was kind of introduced going into a quieter market. So there was maybe a little bit of a busy market where it kind of got introduced, but then shortly after, we just went into this downhill snowball, which was 2023. It's going to be interesting to see if we see the market heat back up. And see, is it going to be now used more often as what it should have been imposed or intended for use?
Yeah, you're right. I wrote down in my notes that it could really be weaponized.
Totally.
Right? Like, so that could be considered the cost of doing business, of writing these incredibly high offers.
Totally.
Maybe as a buyer, you write an offer on 3 different properties, and you decide, holy smokes, I might have overpaid for this one by $50,000.
Over option 2 or option 3.
Yeah. So let's use the rescission. I'd rather save, or I'd spend $2,500 to get out of a $50,000 bad deal sort of thing. So very, very interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So the next one of the ones that caused a lot of problems, more so with the public than anything, it was, it almost seemed like the rules of the game got changed on them. And it was interesting dealing with it from a realtor standpoint. And this is where there was changes made to age restrictions.
That's right.
On strata properties.
That's right.
So for people that are like watching, basically, if you bought into a building and let's say our complex, strata complex, let's say there was a 19 plus, 45 plus age restriction on there where, maybe you didn't want children or you didn't want younger people in there and whatnot. The government completely eliminated those overnight.
That's right.
So they're absolutely gone. You still could have a 55 plus age restriction.
Yeah,
however,
they need to keep them happy for sure, 100%.
Yeah, well, interesting. Living in a world where everybody's equals and trying to eliminate barriers and stuff like that. There's still a barrier there. Differentiating older people from younger people. Totally. But that's an aside. We won't.
Yeah, we are going to talk politics on a real estate show.
No, but that was a big one, because there was some people that obviously bought into those with certain expectations.
Yep.
There was people that were living in those. Actually, I think the people that were living in them, they experienced a windfall, in my opinion, because when you eliminate that age restriction, you open it up to more buyers. Opening up to more buyers increases the value.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So, some people that lived in like a 19 plus, as an example, they just up their value. Let's say it's a condo in White Rock at the time, they might have upped their value by $50,000 overnight.
Totally.
Depending if that's okay with them.
Because now there are the people who want to buy condos who have kids, where with that 19 plus, only people 19 and older, 35, 45, we've seen a bunch of different numbers. 35 only allowed to live there, 45 only. So now you've opened it up to all the families with kids, which is...
That's right. And that was part of the problem. Like part of the problem was like, let's say, you know, you and your wife buy a place and you guys decide to start a family, you have to move.
Exactly.
Right? Because you bought in knowing the bylaws. So it was kind of neat in that respect that like people weren't going to be forced to move and whatnot. But certainly I wouldn't say it was an overly popular one with any of the current property owners. Now, there was another one made at that time too. I believe it was the same time when that one came in. And that was the elimination of rental restrictions.
Yes. Very, very big for a lot of investors.
That was a big one.
That was a big one.
That was a big one. So overnight, rental restrictions were completely wiped out across the province.
Yep.
You know, whether it's good or bad, I actually think it's good. You know, did it open up available units for people to buy?
I agree.
No, it didn't. It probably helped with the rental crisis more than anything, because rents, you know, obviously were very challenged in 2023 as well. But, you know, it was interesting. It was another example of, you know, the provincial government changing the rules of the game on people, not ushering something in, not grandfathering those, you know, existing, just kind of, you know, changing the rules overnight. So it was interesting. It made the ability to rent out any strata property in BC. You know, there's no holding back sort of thing, which I know, like, you were working with buyers, anybody that was looking for an investment. I mean,
well, one of the most important things that we did too was we had to look at all of the bylaws, and usually within a certain time period, they now had forms which said the rental restrictions were this, or rentals were available till here. And then you started getting a few older buildings where there was absolutely no rentals, mostly a lot of 55 plus.
Right.
So we always had to make sure that we went through that to say, hey, if you're an investor, this has to make sense for you. You have to be able to rent this out. This isn't for your personal home. But now this completely opened that game. So for an investor standpoint, it's perfect. But what I kind of think that some people could not see it as a perspective, or maybe people who live in that building. Because when you have people who live and people who tenant, well, people who own take care of their home a lot more than tenants do. Because tenants are just using that as a place to live. It's not, they don't have a vested interest in their property value.
Yeah. They don't have necessarily that pride of ownership that an owner might have. And that's not to paint every tenant with the same brush, of course, but like,
it's not.
But it is true. I mean, we go into tenanted properties all the time, and the level of care is just simply not the same. There is some incredible tenants out there, don't get me wrong, but generally speaking, the level of care is not nearly the same as what.
And that's where you keep those tenants.
Yeah,
for sure, 100%.
Yeah. So that was an interesting one. That was a pretty big one. You know, there were some things that happened with multiplexes in Vancouver and the permitting process in Vancouver. We're not really, you know, orientated too much in Vancouver, so I won't jump into those too much. Here was an interesting one. This one was big news. Yet another example of no grandfathering, no ushering things in, changing the rules of the other night. Now, this one I had a problem with because it really hurt people that were affected by it. Okay. And the one I'm talking about is the BC Short-Term Rental Restrictions Act, or Accommodation Act is what it was called. BC Short-Term Rental Accommodation.
Goodbye to Airbnbs.
Yeah. Airbnb, VRBO, you know, anything less than 90 days is what they define a short-term rental as. Now, good and bad. People that own these for income producing properties, and I want to dispel something, because I think it's so unfair, is everyone kind of envisions anybody that has like an investment property as this like
a tyrant.
Yeah, big, incredibly wealthy and has, you know, all the money in the world, and these changes don't affect them. They do.
Totally.
You know, the average person that we deal with that has income producing properties that are rented out is mom and pop type people. They've got one, they worked their whole life to pay off their mortgage. They've taken out a mortgage on an apartment, and maybe they're renting it out as a short-term rental. So the game changed overnight, right? It removed from most areas in BC the ability to use a property as a short-term rental. So, you know, it really hurt those people. So yeah, I mean, their options are to put those properties into the rental market, which is substantially less income typically than it would be as a short-term rental, or to sell it, which, you know, and I mean, the market has been down this year. So you know, you don't necessarily want to sell things when the market's down.
No. And I feel I feel for a lot of people who have a lot of recreational property, especially up in northern BC. Well, not that much northern, but I can tell from my personal experience is like when we go to shoe swap with our family each year, we only need it for, 1 week or 2 weeks or even 3 weeks. And that's perfect for us. We aren't going to go on a 3-month rental for a place that we're only going to visit for a week. It just doesn't make sense. So in that aspect, that's where I find it where
So for anybody watching this, we just had a software malfunction. Our camera ran out of batteries. You can pop your microphone on, because we're
Rookie season here.
we're going to be working on different audio now. So you might have noticed a little bit of not only a visual change, but there's also going to be a little bit of a sound change. But we're gonna
Hopefully my voice sounds better now.
we're gonna plow through this. So. Anyways, you were saying about the short-term rentals. You guys had actually rented a place when that kind of come in. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. We actually had plans to rent for 2 weeks up in Shuswap Lake. That's about 3.5 hours north from here, just outside of Kamloops. And we just want to go for like 2 weeks. We don't want to have to rent a waterfront townhome for 90 days when we're only going to use it for 2 weeks. So that's why I'm looking at places like VRBO and Airbnb in those rural areas that you would kind of go for, a little bit of a vacation, not necessarily a condo in downtown. That is where that's going to really hurt a lot of people who want to kind of get away for vacation, especially during summer in the nice places like that too.
Yeah, it was a pretty interesting one. I mean, did it open up? I remember reading, I think that it would open up roughly like 16,000 properties to renters, or assuming renters are bringing back to the resale market or whatever. So I mean, there's no doubt that it opened up properties, but like really, really destructive to anybody that didn't see that coming, didn't know that was going to be a thing, right? Okay, we're almost done here, but there were some bigger ones coming here. BC transit-orientated development areas. So proposed legislation will require municipalities to designate transit-oriented development areas near transit hubs. Transit-orientated development areas are land within 800 meters of rapid transit stations. So like, example would be SkyTrain, and with 400 meters of bus exchanges where passengers transfer from one route to another. There's estimated that 100 of these areas will be designated in approximately 30 municipalities throughout BC. The new increased minimum density and floor area ratio must be allowed by local government, and local governments can actually approve higher densities at their discretion. This applies to residential or mixed residential land use, doesn't apply to commercial and agricultural, industrial, that sort of thing. So we're talking anybody that lives close to rapid transit. There's a new line obviously coming in Surrey, going out for just had their area overnight completely change, and now they're going to be not rapid transit. They're going to have significant density added.
I agree.
There's lots of opinions on this. Maybe it's good for those people for their land values that live in those areas. It's good. Obviously, there's going to be more places, purchased there. Another example, simply of rules being changed overnight. And, there's obviously people living in those areas that didn't want that either. I mean, we can, discuss for hours about whether it's totally good or bad, that sort of thing. But that was a really, really significant one that I was a little surprised at. Great for building homes. You can't.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens going down that Fraser Highway. You're going to see, we go right from King George all the way into Langley. So that entire row, we're going to be very interested to see what happens there. So,
yep, absolutely. We got the next one. BC secondary suites and laneway houses. Legislation to permit one secondary suite or one accessory dwelling unit in all of BC communities. Pretty easy one. It's generally I think it's good. It's going to add density, more rentals. Yep. Open up more rentals, more opportunities for people to live. BC speculation and vacancy tax was expanded in new communities. I mean, that's been around for a long time. Doesn't affect a lot of here.
Not even us, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Now, this is an interesting one. This is, I believe, the last one on my list. Actually, no, it's not. There's one more. This one generated a lot of talk. So much so that huge municipalities of British Columbia came out against it. Surrey came out against it. The township of Langley came out against it. I'm sure there was more that I didn't catch. This was it's called the Small Scale Multi-Unit Housing Initiative.
Yeah.
And this is basically where you could now build a 3-unit multiplex on a lot that's smaller than 3,000 square feet. 4-unit multiplex allowed on lots greater than 3,000 square feet. 4 units on a lot greater than 3,000 square feet. And up to 6 units on lots greater than 3,000 square feet in close proximity to public transit stops with frequent service. The municipal governments have to update their zoning bylaws by the 30th of next year, June 30th, of 2024, to make sure that this is ready to go. Now, this applies only to municipalities of over 5,000 people.
Like, I get the NIMBY the NIMBY conversation, and by NIMBY I say not in my own backyard.
Right. So you're saying people that are going to be affected. Well, everybody's going to be affected by this if you live in a community greater than 5,000 people, which is a lot.
Totally.
So,
but in that conversation, just imagine a 3,000 square foot lot, okay? And now you're going to allow up to 4 homes living there. Perfect for your rental market. What I'm worried about is the infrastructure that comes with that. It's going to come with, is there enough parking for everybody? Is there going to be enough, enough land for people to live? I mean, that's 4 separate dwellings within.
and infrastructure is a huge thing. You've got the cars on the street. You've got the education system, which we know in Surrey anyway is really starting to keep up with population. You've got access to parks. You've got shopping facilities. You've got the rapid transit. It's a beautiful idea to say that a bus is now going to come down your street when all this infrastructure or when all these units come in. That's probably not reality, right? Yeah. So, I in fact, I did a video on this that was, kind of
highly popular.
Yeah, it blew up. There was lots of opinions kind of for both sides on it and whatnot, whether it was good or bad sort of thing. My biggest concern with it all is the lack of requirements for parking.
Mm-hmm.
You and I work in neighborhoods all the time where people, which was previously illegal, would have multiple suites in their home. You were allowed 1, but sort of have maybe 2, 3, whatever.
Yeah.
The cars on the streets are incredible, right? Of course. And, you start to imagine this happening in the neighborhood, and one pops up here, one pops up there. It's not going to happen overnight, so I need to acknowledge that. But one starts popping up, and this is all kind of happening in the shadows, right? So then fast forward 10 years, 15 years from now, you're looking around and you go, holy smokes, like these things are everywhere. There's no, the community that I loved where, the tree-lined streets and all that sort of thing. And the communities are going to upgrade. They're going to change. That's the nature of living in a growing community. But it's going to really change our neighborhoods.
I agree. It's going to have less of that suburb rural feeling, and it's going to feel a little bit more dense. And I can see both sides of the argument too. I can see the side of, well, hey, growth is good for our, for our province, for our communities, but at the same time, the infrastructure needs to come with it. And I think that may get often put aside saying, well, we hope that, so-and-so is going to live up to their word and they're going to make more street parking and they're going to do this. What I'm worried about is if someone is looking at their bottom dollar, they're going to say, well, hey, why don't we just throw the next 4 suite on that lot, and then, parking, it'll sort itself out. And it never does.
Yeah, well, and like specifically with the units that are close proximity in public transit, it specifically said there would be no parking minimums. That's very, very concerning. So you imagine a 3,000 square foot lot with 6 units with 0 parking available. To me, that's
already getting panicked.
Yeah, there's neighborhoods like the Clayton neighborhood in Cloverdale is a great example, where there has been so much pushback against the city about how that area was developed, because you've got like the coach homes with the basement suites and the primary residence. So there's 3 units effectively, for each plot of land, and good luck finding parking there.
I agree.
Oftentimes people park up to 4 blocks away just to walk.
Sounds like my showings when I go and show.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, parking is one of my number one concerns about that, but I also don't love things happening in the shadows. It's not about NIMBYism. It's about things happening in the community that are slowly building that aren't planned for, right? And then one day you turn around, you go, holy smokes, look at what this has become, and there's no getting back from it, right? Which is why zoning exists, why city planners are, a thing, right? So anyways, very, very interesting. Well, I'll link that video to this video, but it was a popular one. I feel like it might have got out on some Facebook groups of people who are supportive of that. And
Read those with a grain of salt.
yeah, well, hey, check out the comments, and I'm open minded. I want to know what people think and what.
I agree.
But there's certain parts of it that I certainly don't agree with. The last one is the BC standardized housing design. Now, this is a cool idea, and actually, the federal government's doing something around this as well. This is really getting into, I love the idea of the BC box, the BC special. So it's, rectangular house, 2 stories, easy to build, quick and easy.
Yep.
So what it really is saying is like standardized housing is like pre-approved designs. If you want one of these pre-approved designs, bang, approved, go build it.
Yeah.
There's not all this red tape. It's very, very streamlined. There's going to be 10 different designs that are, close to building permit ready. I think that's a brilliant idea.
Oh, for sure.
That's like a wartime thing that was done, after the World War II sort of thing. So I think that's a really cool idea. I'm looking forward to seeing the designs, and
we'll talk to any developer right now, and they're saying, man, to get just the permits for excavation, to the permits for getting the foundation, and to the permits of framing and, electrical, water, it takes so much longer than it does because they're waiting on that government to push those permits through. And so if you have this in place, perfect. They say,
yeah,
choose A to, I don't know what my letters are to 10, but choose from 1 to 10, and there you go. Build it. Perfect. Now we get more homes in to house more people. It's a win-win.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think the biggest complaint is going to be maybe by developers, because there might be less, opportunity to build those custom homes. I mean, everybody wants a special home, but when you can't afford it and you need a place to live, this is a way of, hopefully lightening up the, the cost of building that home. So I think it's a great idea. I'm very excited. Now that was a mouthful. I mean, that was a ton of stuff, right? Like, there's been so many changes. I mean, there's been changes on our industry specifically as well. I feel like half the times when I fill out a contract, I have to do a double think about like a new disclosure.
Exactly. Do we add this form? Was this form? What was the name of that one? Make sure we add this one. So, back when you started, probably in 2007, how many pages would you say your complete deal would be?
Oh gosh, for a complicated deal, 4 pages.
So times that by 10, and that's maybe what we would have had a few years ago. Now it's at least we're probably looking at anywhere from 15 to 20 different documents, and they could range from 1 page up to 5 pages.
Oh yeah. The additional documents are crazy, and I mean even like a contract to write on a strata and not putting anything crazy in there, you're probably looking at 10 pages right there. Yeah, it's pretty incredible. So, anyways, busy year for real estate. I expect next year to be just as busy.
I agree.
Okay, we're gonna wrap up this video pretty quick. Right? I want to talk a little bit about predictions for next year. So I'm gonna give it mine. You can agree, you can disagree, you can let me know what you think. Before I do that, this is what happened last year in terms of pricing. Okay. So detached homes in the Lower Mainland up 7.8% for the benchmark price. Okay. In the Fraser Valley up 7.1%.
Okay. Yep.
Certainly didn't think they would go up that high. Townhomes in the Lower Mainland up 6%. And in the Fraser Valley up 5.3% year over year. Oh. And in the apartment category, Lower Mainland up 5.7%, and in the Fraser Valley 6.9%.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean
7%.
Good year. I mean, look, buy real estate. I mean, obviously we're biased over.
Yeah.
But hey, even in a challenging market, lowest sales in 10 years. That's how much demand is out there, and year over year you still made a great totally. So that's pretty cool. Okay, predictions for 2024. You ready?
Exciting.
Let's go. Sales up, down. What's going to happen?
Sales are going up for sure, because just based on the landscape of what's happened over the last, we'll call it 6 months. We'll call it since all those interest rate hikes and people were qualifying at 7%, 6%, 8%. Well, there has been talk. There's been a little bit of gossip that rates might come down. Like I said, not economists, so we are going to throw a bunch of facts out, but I think that if the interest rates go down, which goes to our next part, but I think sales will go up, in my opinion.
I would agree. We're not economists. Anybody watching this should be making their own financial decisions. Don't rely on our opinions, but we've done very, very well in the past with our predictions. I believe sales will be up. A home buyer, it's been expensive to buy a home, but the prices have come down. Let's be honest about that since the peak, right? So the prices have come down. cannot sit on the fence forever. You either rent or buy. There's no in between.
Right? Great zone.
So you can't sit on the fence forever. So if and when rates improve, or even if we're in our new normal, it's going to move. People are going to act. I'm going to call next year be our recovery year. I think it's going to be.
I agree with that.
As people adjust to new reality rates, we're not going back to 1.5% rates.
No, that was crazy. Happens. That was once in a lifetime emergency because of the COVID pandemic, and they just needed to let people put money in, and hey, we need to buy homes. We need to do this, stimulate the market.
Yeah, and generally, honestly, since about 2008, there's been so much stuff going on in the world that rates have been staying low. So we need to adjust to the new reality that rates are just going to be a little bit higher, ideally not as high as today. So prices up, down, what do you think? Year over year, where's it going to be?
I think prices ultimately up. And because what happens is as interest rates go down, I believe there are more people who will now qualify to purchase more. Therefore, prices go up as the demand goes up.
Okay.
So yeah, because right now we're living in more inventory and less buyers, which is a buyer's market. So I think we're going to end up the opposite way. I think there are going to be more buyers out, maybe a little bit less inventory, kind of sparking that seller's market again.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, there's so much pent up demand in the market, and people are sitting on the sidelines because affordability has been challenging, right? So I think once there's any movement, we're going to see a relatively productive market. And my advice for anybody, and this is advice we're going to be giving to buyers right across the board. Don't wait till everybody else starts jumping in. Yep. Things are on sale right now. Real estate is not on sale very often. Sure. Take advantage of it while you have the opportunity to look and search and that sort of thing, because when it comes back, I believe it's going to come back quite fierce.
Yeah, I agree.
Who knows what prices might be up by next year, but I would kind of project it's probably going to be similar to this year, maybe around the 7 to 8% mark. So
yeah, I'll say that. Maybe I'll go on the conservative side. I'll say 5.
I did conservative last year. It didn't work out.
There you go. So maybe I'll take that on this year.
What do you think's going to happen with rates?
Rates have to go down. If they decide to hike it a little bit more, you and I are looking for different jobs. But no, I think if Canada is anything of what the murmurs around what the Fed's going to do, Fed is the Bank of Canada, but for the States, they said that there's rumors that it's going to drop maybe 1.25%.
Right.
And so if we are like how we've seen in history to kind of follow trend, I think we should maybe see at least 1%. I will go more. I'll go about 1.5%.
Oh, okay. I think you're being a little.
Yeah, I need to compensate from the last one.
No, hey, that's okay. If I had to guess, and I'm not an economist, but I read a lot of economists about what's going on with Barber and stuff like that. So if I had to guess, by this time next year, let's say December 2024, it's hard to believe we're in 2024.
I know.
But by this time next year, we're probably looking at about 1 to 1.25%, lower than where we are today.
Totally.
I would project you're probably going to see at least 3 rate cuts next year.
I think
that'll easily happen.
Yeah, I think I'll say that too. I'm hoping because I'm on a variable, so I really hope that might.
Yeah, anybody on a variable is like crossing their fingers. Totally.
I'm with you guys. Don't worry.
Okay, last one for you.
Okay.
If you had to predict the biggest gain in an asset class, whether it's going to be condos, townhomes, or detached, which one are you going to pick and why?
You know what? I'm going to choose detached. And I think that moving from the townhome to the detached is where the majority of people are going to be stuck in right now, is because with that big boom that we had in 2021, we saw the unaffordability of, townhomes hitting 1.4 for a 4-bedroom. That's insane. That's what people were spending before COVID on detached homes. So I think when the market kind of will say, quote unquote, corrected itself through this down market, I think there's going to be a lot more opportunity for people to say, hey, we can afford a little bit more. So why don't we go for that detached home now? We're prices are come down quite significant since that peak. So maybe that is our gap to make it. And I know that you're going to tell your prediction, but we've seen, or at least I've seen from my buyer perspective, there's families now who are now being like, hey, I'm going to sell my condo. We're going to sell our detached home. We're going to sell our townhome. And now we're going to go buy a piece of land. And we're going to build 3 or 4 homes, live kind of as a kind of combine.
Compound.
Yeah. I have that combine, but compound. Yeah. So that's what I've been seeing too. So maybe that is now going to be this emergence of the detached market. Maybe
it's
here. So
you might be right. I really see a lot of opportunity in the detached market more than anything. the prices are sticky when they come down, but detached obviously has been largely affected because the price points are bigger, right? So you got a detached that's goes down 10% and it's worth 100 or 1.5 million. That's 150 grand.
Now it's at 1.35.
So that's right. Yeah. So that's a big number. So I'm going to project the biggest gains in that area because they've also probably been the largely most affected by, the prices coming down. So I remember my dad told me something years ago, they're not making any more land.
No,
buy land if you can.
That's it. Yeah.
So that's my guess. So anyways, man, I want to thank you. This is
I'm happy to be here. We're going to do way more. I like to be involved in this. And hey, I mean, you haven't seen my face. You've only seen your face. So it's time that we see
people are tired.
Germyn.
People are tired to say my face.
Oh,
I don't disagree with that. Okay. Well, hopefully anybody watching this video got some value out of it. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll look forward to hopefully seeing you on the next one.
Till next time.
Done.
Bye.
Bye.